Nigeria is damaged, irreparably damaged, and it cannot be fixed. I will not mince words. The only thing that can fix Nigeria is a reset. You can interpret that however you want to interpret it.
Why don't the Yorubas and the Igbos of Nigeria genuinely trust or like each other? Why? This is a fundamental question we need to ask openly, even though it is a very uncomfortable one. We need to talk about it. Believe me, not talking about it only makes it worse. And I suppose some of you understand exactly what I mean. Most Nigerians out here seems to be afraid to ask this question openly, like I'm doing now. But, well, here it is. Why don't the Yorubas and the Igbos of Nigeria truly, genuinely trust or like one another? I ran a survey last week among 300 people, Nigerians, both Yorubas and Igbos, and here is the responses I gathered from them. Here is what I gathered from all the responses I got from all 300, okay? Most of the Yorubas said, they said, the one reason why they don't like the Igbos is because the Igbos always want to be in control. They feel privileged and think they are above every other tribe in Nigeria. An Igbo person is too conservative and would not genuinely mingle with other tribes, which is why they want to divide Nigeria, because the Igbos lost their political and individual identity during the civil war between 1967 and 1970. So I suppose they are talking about the Biafra time. Now let's come to the response I got from the Igbos regarding the Yorubas. Most of the Igbos said a Yoruba man or woman should not be trusted and cannot be trusted. A Yoruba person is very unpredictable, arrogant, disrespectful to other tribes in Nigeria, and they believe the Yoruba tribe is the only tribe that is above all, and they want to show themselves as the most educated tribe in Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, it don't set. This is a massive problem, and this is why I said we need to talk about this. If we don't talk about it, believe me, this is not going to go anywhere. The tribalism issue in Nigeria is tearing the country apart. How do we fix this? How do we change the mindset of these people, both the Yorubas and the Igbos, to see themselves as one? Because this antagonism situation has been for a long time. It didn't just happen in my own time. It's been there since like forever, but nobody seems to be talking about it. We need to talk about it. We need to educate the younger ones coming up, growing up, that this is not the way it should be.
I detest the dog whistling of an entire ethnic group in Nigeria. And let's call a spade what it is. It's becoming one too many that we want to consistently and continuously scapegoat the Igbo ethnic tribe in Nigeria, and it's unacceptable. It is unacceptable because there is a history of violence targeted at that group since 1953 in our country. Listen, Caesar, a meeting was held in Lagos, not necessarily a meeting, in Parliament. Anthony Nahoro moved a motion for the independence of Nigeria. The North opposed that motion, and at the train station, when they were going back to their constituency, they met a crowd that was essentially mocking them. They got back to the North. Chief Akintola led a tour across the North, to campaign essentially for the independence, to rally the North in support of Nigerian independence. Guess what happened after that? Riots broke out in northern parts of Nigeria, particularly in Kano, where over 240 Igbos were massacred. Were they the ones that demanded for Nigeria to have an independence at that time? In 1966, particularly in May, Months before the Civil War happened, thousands of them were massacred across northern cities, and they had to flee to the east for safety because thousands of them were indiscriminately killed for what they knew nothing about. Right? So let's not even talk about the Civil War and the hundreds of thousands that were massacred, and the fact that after 1970, this entire ethnic group had to start from the scratch again to begin to build their lives. And she's a look at what they have done since 1970. A group that left or started from nothing, went to Bauchi, went to Kano, went to Meduguri, went to Akure, went to Ogun State. And look what they have built in 40 years of hard work, grit, and no support from the federal government. Look what they have done from themselves. But what we consistently and continuously do is to signal hatred and violence against the group. And this thing has to stop. We can't continue a country. Listen, if you don't want a group of people to be a part, let them go then. I don't understand this. Every turn, there has to be an excuse to single out an ethnic group. I give you a typical example. Just like the past elections, I heard people telling, how can the Obi, for instance, have scored 98% in certain states in the north? How can he have scored 90%? Muhammadu Buhari, under a PDP-led federal government, scored over 90% votes in 4 northern states. Go and check the results in Katsina. Go and check the results in Bauchi. Go and check the results in Jigawa. He scored over 90% in those states under the leadership of the PDP as a federal government. So it was okay for Buhari to score over 90% in his own core constituency, but something utterly went wrong when Obi did it in the southeast. This ethnic group have always been part of a nationalist political party and never really have ever built a regional movement. All the times they have supported a political party have been national political parties right from the NCNC.
Yeah, true.
They have a stakeholder in the PDP. They don't have a regional party in the sense that we had ACN in the southwest, in the sense that they had AMPP in the north. They did not have the behemoth of a regional political party. So where is all this hate coming from? Where is all this hate coming from? They tell you now, for instance, that they have a rabid mob who are harassing people on the internet because their candidate lost. We have very short memories. In 2011, a candidate lost in this country and over 800 people were massacred in violence in the north. I so know this because I personally saved 11 core members and were hidden in my father's hotel in Kano. So what are we saying? 800 people were massacred because of the ambition of somebody in this country. And suddenly we are losing our minds because we are saying people are insulting you online, and they're a rabid mob. Let us stop this. Let us stop this ethnic dog whistling. Let us stop this ethnic baiting, and this thing should not continue.
I thought it would be quite apparent. I don't know too many countries that have had civil wars like we have and don't have a memorial. And particularly for the fact that we have new generations of Nigerians growing up, and that prior experience has not been adequately addressed, either to address the traumas of it and those that suffered from it as victims on all sides. So as a nation, in terms of nation building, I think it's the one perfect thing that, particularly like a president currently like Asiwaju, who's, you could deem a Yoruba president who's kind of on the neutral side, to give a balanced catharsis for the nation, so we can move past that and try and meld together more united. And I think it's fundamental that if people don't feel that that has been acknowledged, they are lost from that era and the wrongs on all sides. I think it's just fundamental to nation building. If we think we want to develop as one nation, that we have that, particularly somewhere in Abuja, that all the names of those who were lost during the Civil War is memorialized.
Now, I know your father very well. It's like a grandfather, but called me friend. And he was on this trajectory about uniting the nation. And it was one of in the forefront of identify the true identity of Nigeria. But I see on Twitter these days and social media how I didn't know that Nigeria was this divided until you get to Twitter. And that's where in fact, people are asking Gok, the AI tool, and questions that will further explain the division and the gap, ethnic gap and the tribal gaps. And you have ascribed that there's little knowledge about what has happened to us in the past. You look at those who say history being taken out of our curriculum is a major problem. But how many years now since the Civil War? What more can we do to make the restructuring process that Pa Adebanjo preached before he died? Is it part of the process, or what exactly? Or is a political will? Is a government of the day? Where do we start from exactly? Because definitely the younger generation are terribly divided.
Yes. Well, the first thing we need to do is actually understand the problem. Let's know that our problems is designed. Nigeria was actually designed to fail by the colonial masters. You need to grasp the gravity of that. Even in our textbooks, in my generation, when we still were taught history, they told us they adopted a divide and rule strategy. That still persists today. There are things baked into our union that forces us to be divided so we do not develop. A friend of mine gave a very good analogy where you have football teams, for instance, whether you're Chelsea or Man U. The rivalry that is orchestrated between the fans of those two football teams is mind control. It's deliberate because the owners of those football teams benefit from the passions that are engendered within that. People are passionate, they buy tickets, sometimes it even leads to violence. Nigeria is in a similar position where maybe they just throw out a concept that there's something called Igbo and Yoruba rivalry. Where did that come from? These two people have lived together for thousands of years. There was no rivalry. So until someone just orchestrated that as a template to keep those two united, because of course, if you have Igbos and Yoruba united, you probably would unite across the entire South and the Middle Belt and change. Because what happens is the reason why we have bad government in terms of we don't have good leaders emerge, and even those who emerge, we can't hold them accountable because the people are divided. That's it. So the crux of it is we are designed to fail so that we're designed to be divided so that we fail. And that's why there's things like the Civil War Memorial I'm talking about, and people understanding how what my friend called Oyibo Wayo is at play in all the things that happens in the country. And it plays even, for instance, when you see distracting things like Big Brother, which is distracting our youths from focusing on the issues. Some of these things are deliberate. Let's not think it's an accident.
I come here today to condemn the statement of Abike Dabiri, that woman that has not been useful for any other thing, that's squandering our money over our family, over our non-gnostication, stupidity things. I totally condemn a statement of tribalizing criminality among Nigerians. I totally go against the fact that she, one way or the other, indirectly referring to a particular group of tribe in Nigeria to be behind all the criminalities in Nigeria. An Igbo small girl was the best student this year in all subjects in England. We say she is a Nigerian. But when there is problem, like what you are saying about Malaysia or whatever, that the people on death row, there are 20 people are on death row, there are 20 of them are from Southeast, one of them from Edo. Your Excellency, what is wrong with your brain? Why do you have a selective memory? Is it because you don't wash your hair all the time? 52 Yoruba people are in Saudi Arabia facing death penalty. 52 Nigerians, the Yoruba people. So, last week in New York, over 14 Nigerians were rounded up. Mostly Yoruba people. You are trying to tribalize criminality. A criminal is a criminal. As long as you are carrying your passport, if you committed any crime, you are a Nigerian. I'm trying to say that you don't want people to generalize it. Haven't you generalized it by you saying that 20 of the 21 are from Southeast, and that has been the normal routine? What is normal routine? I want 50 to 1 in Saudi Arabia. We don't want bigots like these people in power. We don't want people who talk along with Shisha. We have Nigerians suffering, dying every day in Libya. This woman the time we had problem in Sudan, this woman, this bigot of a woman, refused to carry people from Southeast, giving preferential treatment. People who are facing death, on selecting one. Eru Fulani. On tribalized criminality to Nigeria. Are we not Nigerians? Aren't we carrying the same passport? Èmi ò mọ̀ bí ó ṣe jẹ́ wípé bọ́n ṣe sọ pé we are so smart in Nigeria. Àwọn olófò bí eléyìí. Àwọn olófò ènìyàn. Àwọn ọ̀dàlúrú. Àwọn òfi ọ̀rọ̀ báyẹ́jẹ́. Irú yín náà fi sípò. How do you mean that that you don't want to generalize it, but most of the crime always come from one particular place? There are over 50 Yorubas that are facing death penalty in Saudi Arabia right now. Why aren't you saying a goddamn thing about it? You make me mad this morning.
In my own opinion, I think that the 6 geopolitical zones that were created, I think by Abacha or who was it, I think it was a deliberate and calculated attempt aimed at containing the Igbos. That is my opinion, and I'm entitled to it. And let me explain further. You see, part of the basis, part of the reasons why the government gave at that point in time for the creation of these 6 geopolitical zones was the fact that it was not just created out of geographical locations, but based on the fact that people that were similar in culture and other things were brought together. So the question I begin to ask myself is, how is it that there's no similarity between an Igbo man and the Niger Deltans? You quite agree with me that there's similarity, right? And secondly, let's look at the creation. Why I say it's a deliberate move to contain them in one place is the fact that, look at the way they would have been privileged to the water if not for the fact that they were carved in the middle. If you look at it, you see they were carved in the middle, which deprived them of having a seaport. But when you look at places like Lagos now, Lagos is privileged to have that by virtue of the fact that it's close to the water. And funny enough now, you get to look at it that the seaports that are supposed to be viable in the Niger Deltas are not viable. Why are they not viable? You should answer that question to yourself. So if you look at it generally, there's a problem there. And funny enough, the Niger Delta seems not to be agitating for having these seaports. Why? Possibly because they are already rich in terms of the revenue allocation they get because they have oil. But another thing again is the fact that one of the main reasons why the Igbo man have to live to places like Lagos is the fact that the Igbo man is a businessman. And there's ease of doing business since they are more into importing or whatever to come and reside in Lagos. But funny enough, this would have been made much easier had it been, there's a kind of, if the seaports in the Niger Deltas is viable, right? So, but you get to see that by the time the Igbo man complain of we need seaport now, they will say, no, you don't have anywhere to have a seaport, right? And let's go to this other aspect. What are the major reasons for the agitation of an Igbo man in the country at the moment? We just need to do justice to that. One is the fact that the Igbo man feel threatened anywhere he goes. In most of the places he goes, most especially in the north, anything that happens, he feels threatened. We're going to burn down your business. This is not your place. We'll send you away. With evidence, right? It has happened so many times. In short, even recently in Lagos, they seems to be having that as well, right? That is point agitation number one. Number two agitation is the fact that they feel that they don't need to go to Lagos to actually access seaport and have ease of doing business, and a lot of it. It would have been much more easier had it been them and the Niger Deltans are together and there's a seaport created there, right? Which is a fact, and of which I feel it would have been the best. But in so doing now, I think it's going to make Lagos less effective, and at the same time, in short, it's going to make Lagos less effective. And I think that's why politically, consciously or unconsciously, that has remained for a very long time. But looking at it now, having said this, what is the way out? The way out still remains the fact that I think the Igbos need to work better with the Niger Deltans, because I see a lot of similarity, if not for political differences and a lot of other things born out of selfishness and born out of a creation that was actually designed to contain them. I think they will strive more better, and they will agitate for all these things that can make their regions more viable. And second, another thing is we need to look at the landmass. One of the reasons why the Igbo man have to move to other places, a lot of places to do business as well, is the fact that he's deprived of the landmass. Generally speaking, if you look at the creation of the 6 geopolitical regions, you will get to see that it was just a calculated attempt born out of selfishness and born out of trying to contain a particular group of people, not to be viable. So, but just like I said, I feel there is need for the Igbos to either work out their differences with the Niger Deltans, because while the fact is some of their differences seems to be stemming from the past history in regards to the civil war that happened, but I feel everybody have made mistakes at any point in time, and they need to put aside differences and come together and fight for that. And I equally want to talk about the quality of the legislators, the lawmakers that are being pushed from these regions. I feel competent legislators should be pushed that can lobby and work with other people at the same time. So this is just my opinion generally, and I feel, well, there's more to this, but let me just stop here.
Today, being the 22nd day of November, no election in Biafra land.